This is Spiritual Mamas Podcast. We're a couple of mamas out here just trying to raise kids, make it through a work day, and navigate mental health issues, all while going through a spiritual awakening. And we thought we'd take you with us. So grab your favorite cozy drink and let's chat.
Hello, welcome back to Spiritual Mamas Podcast. I'm Aericka.
And I'm Kim.
And today we thought we would talk about mental health, specifically our own journeys with it, because we both have had pretty good journeys with it. And we thought people would benefit from hearing
that everybody kind of goes through it and it can look different. So sometimes I know in my own case, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, I wasn't necessarily realizing what I was experiencing as it was happening.
Same.
So I guess I'll kind of just jump into it. I have had lots of experiences with depression and anxiety over time. And really, I think depression started first. And I couldn't necessarily pinpoint when was the first time that I realized I was depressed. But there have been different instances in my life where I was at really low places. I would have no desire or energy to interact with people, even if it was like people that I really cared for, people that were really close to me. I have been at periods of time in my life not wanting to do my daily activities, not wanting to shower, not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to cook, take care of myself, take care of my family. So there was one time in particular, which was the first time that I realized that I struggled with depression in this way. I had been in school for medical assisting. So this was, I don't even know how many years ago, 2008 maybe. And I would leave class, get in my car and cry for no reason. For no reason that I could pinpoint at the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that makes it really difficult, at least for me, is that I had a lot of times where I would try to seek support from family and be told well, why do you feel that way?
I don't know.
Yeah, I have no reason. There is no reason. So it kind of was invalidating. It made me feel like I shouldn't be feeling that way. And so maybe that's part of the reason why I turned inward and started to isolate, not really wanting to share with anybody because nobody could really understand why I felt that way. And I couldn't understand. But I would sob in my car on the way home. I would get home and get in bed and not want to do anything. And that was when I first realized that I had been depressed. Now looking back, I can see that that was kind of like a pinnacle for me. I had been depressed long before that and didn't even know that's what it was. I was kind of just going through the motions.
That's your kind of, like you said, the high point of the worst at the time of your depression.
Yeah. So that was definitely one of the worst depressive episodes that I've had. And honestly, I don't know. Now looking back, I don't know how I got through it. I can't remember, which is something that happens with depression. Your memory gets kind of shot. Your concentration gets kind of shot. So
it's like your body protecting yourself from how you're feeling.
Yeah, from that experience. So I don't remember now what I did then. But I did come through it, or maybe I just came up a little bit to a baseline. And then the next time that I dealt with a really severe depression, that was worse in a different way. I didn't have the desire to do anything, but I would still function, go to work, do all the things that I needed to do, take care of my responsibilities. I wasn't as, I don't want to say emotional. I wasn't crying so easily. I wasn't opening up to my emotions so easily. I kind of just shut them down.
Yeah, you just stuffed them down. So that's why you weren't crying. You're like, nope, no feelings. I'm not having these feelings today. So I'm just gonna be even keel. Yeah. It's a strange thing. Definitely.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the big things too, is like it looked so different each time. One time I was like depressed visibly and everybody else could see it. And this other time I was apathetic, like nothing is
Yeah.
coming up.
I feel like it's a misnomer about depression that you have to be where you can't get out of bed and you can't function and you're crying all the time. Because I feel like that's 90% not what's going on. 90% of the time, like,
Yeah.
it's like functional depression where you're wandering around the day just, either being apathetic or crying easily, or you're still going to work, you're still handling, but maybe you're snapping at people,
Yeah.
maybe you're overstimulated too easily, or you don't want to do anything but you still do, but you're not happy about it, you're not enjoying it.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's a big misnomer for people that they think I don't have depression because I still do stuff. Oh, okay, yeah, but are you enjoying it? Are you liking it? Are you wanting it? That sort of thing.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that was a challenge for me, is that a lot of people in my family give one of two responses. And one is, well, we're all going through it, right? It's hard for all of us. So we all learn to deal with it. And it's kind of just expected. That's what life is. You're not going to enjoy doing dishes. You're not going to enjoy, your responsibilities. And I definitely come from a family that puts that all out there. Like, if we need to rally around you, we'll rally around you. But what level are you at?
Yeah. Do you really need it?
Right.
Yeah.
So
like,
there
what
was
constitutes the need, though? It's like, it shouldn't matter if you are asking for it, even if it's little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there was a little bit of internalizing that for me. The other aspect that I get a lot is, well, maybe you just need to pray more. Maybe you need to go to church more. Maybe you need to connect to God more. Maybe you need to, something religious. And
which I think for some people, absolutely. Absolutely. If that's your connection, if that is your strength or your calm place, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we talked about before that wasn't for you.
Right.
So someone saying that, you're like, I'm not connected to that, so that's not going to help me.
Right.
Yeah.
And I very much know that, like, in depression, that's one of the things that's the hardest to do, is to connect. I can't connect with the people around me. I can't connect with myself. I can't connect with, how am I going to connect with something that I didn't connect with before?
Yeah.
So it's not like going to meet an old friend and, having some coffee and being able to just be present. So that was another struggle for me in going through all of that depression, was, what does this look like for me? Is it actually depression? What can I be doing about it? How are the people around me supporting me or not supporting me? I will say that the last time that I went through a very serious depression, I was having some like really unhealthy thoughts, just like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And that was when I decided maybe I need to try some medication.
Yeah, because that's terrifying. But I'm glad you realized that and reached out and were open to that possibility,
Yeah. It definitely took me a little while, but once I was there, it was like, okay. And that time I did have a little bit of a different type of support. My boyfriend at the time, he was like, very much aware of how much I was struggling, even though I don't know that anybody else was aware of it.
Yeah.
And so he was doing things like, hey, let's go for a walk. Hey, let's eat some healthy food. Hey, let's try this. Hey, let's try that. Like, he was doing all sorts of his own research to try and help me through it.
That's good. That's awesome.
Absolutely. I very much am appreciative of that. In that moment, I was not. In that moment, I think I might have told him, like, just leave me alone. I don't want to do any of this stuff. I don't have the energy to do this stuff.
And that's the other thing about depression, is like that no energy, like constant fatigue feeling, which, you're like, well, I'm sleeping too much, but why am I still so tired? I'm not doing anything. Why am I so tired? It's the way your body, the chemicals, when you have depression, that's what happens. it messes with your ability to have energy.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I've come to decipher with that is like, am I tired? Like, oh, I slept 8 hours and I'm waking up feeling refreshed, but I still don't have the energy, versus am I not sleeping enough?
Yeah.
I'm not getting good quality sleep. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
So realizing that having low energy and having increased fatigue can look very similar, but sometimes are different things. And when depression comes on, they overlap so much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So recognizing that for myself was important. And, once I started to like try and do something, I was like, okay, let me just start with medication, just start there. And I think that got me to a place where I was able to say, okay, let me do some of the stuff that I know would be helpful that I haven't been able to do otherwise, and then move through it from there. So it was a process for me, and one that I, for better or worse, did mostly on my own.
Yeah. So did you feel like the medicine kind of opened up for you? So when I am asking, because when I talk to people about starting medication, why medication can be helpful in mental health, what I will usually say is, imagine you're standing in front of a forest and you can see the path, but you start down the path and it's really dark and there's roots and there's rocks and you fall in a stream and you get lost. I mean, you're just like, I just want to get through this path. Like, why is this so hard? So what medication can do is it straightens that path for you a little bit better. It takes away some of those rocks. It makes it so you can get through the path easier. It doesn't get rid of the forest. Like, that's your stressors. I can't get rid of your stressors, but we can help get you through the path, and then therapy or other modalities can help thin the forest.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I look at medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if like maybe, did you feel like the path got a little bit smoother?
Yeah, definitely. I actually really like that analogy. I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
Yeah, it's a good one to describe it, because I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is being able to just even see the path, right? You're just standing there and it's like everything is just completely overwhelming. And for me, it was really helpful. I took the medication, and in the first 2 weeks, I noticed just a slight increase in my energy. Not so much that I was like getting everything done or that I was trying to do everything, but it was enough for me to say, maybe I can take a shower every day. Even just that. Like, maybe I can have one meal that was like cooked by me or someone else today, and not fast food, if I'm eating at all. So it gave me, in very small increments, a way of starting to like pile through all of that without needing to be so hard on myself. Because I think that was the other thing too. It's like, I know all of these things that I should be doing, that I could be doing, that could be helpful, but I'm not doing them. And so now I feel worse.
Right.
And that
kind of quiets those voices that are like telling you, like the kind of the running chorus in your brain of negative thoughts, slows them down a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely did that for me. So yes, medicine was not the cure. It wasn't the thing that got me better.
Right.
It was the thing that helped me to use the tools that would help get me better.
It got you through the path so they can start to thin the forest. Yeah,
absolutely. So that made a huge difference for me. And I used that medication. It was like, I got to a point with it where I was like, oh, gotta take my happy pill today. Gotta take my happy pill today. And it was a joke. Like, everybody in my home knew, like, oh, did you take your happy pill today? Like, I needed that to keep going. But it did what it needed to do. And then I got to a point where I think just organically, like, I had missed one or two here and then one or two there. And I realized that I was feeling better just in general.
Yeah.
And so I started to talk to some of my providers about, maybe I don't need this medication. So I worked with them to like wean off of it, and it eventually stopped it. I think if I needed to again, I absolutely would be quicker to go to it. If I got to that place, I would be like, yep, let me get right on it, because I know this cycle, and I know that it can look different, and I know that it can affect me in so many different ways. And so let's work on that. Today, I don't struggle with depression. I do struggle with anxiety.
Yeah.
I struggle with anxiety on like a daily basis. But I feel like it's much more manageable than what my depression was. It's not, it doesn't affect me in the same way.
Like you're not completely overwhelmed by it, not paralyzed by it, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am able to not just function, but I'm able to enjoy my day to day. My anxiety tends to come up more for me when it comes to people that I love. If they're struggling in some way,
Absolutely.
my anxiety can come up. And, you know, just the natural overthinking. And then I'll do whatever I need to do in that moment to kind of pull myself back. And do I even need to be giving this energy right now? Do I even need to be, you know, thinking about this? How is that serving me? And
we talked about last time, like putting things in a box.
Yeah.
And kind of stepping away and like analyzing, like, okay, is that energy that I need? Is that, like you said, serving me?
Yeah.
And if not, let me put it in this box and put it down and I will deal with this later. Or if I don't need to deal with it, I won't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
I
thought that was really helpful.
Yeah, it's one of my go-tos because there's so many times where you could easily get caught up in that spiral of thoughts, and it can just,
as I have multiple times, know it all too well.
What has your experience been with?
So my mental health journey kind of started low level when I was in not the best relationship for a really long time. Kind of my first major relationship was not a good one. And so I started to have some low level depression at that point. I started to have some body image issues. I did binge eat. I did not purge, I just binged eat. And I realized that much later that was happening. So that was kind of going on. And then in 2008, I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And at that point, and in the same 2 weeks, that long-term relationship ended.
Oh, wow.
And I cried for 2 weeks straight. Like, could not stop crying, you know, between the diagnosis and like the relationship ending and, you know, everything. And it was such a devastating thing for me because I had always been an athlete. I had always been on top of everything. I had been everybody's go-to when it came to problems or anything like that. I was their go-to. And, you know, I was very intellectual. And so to lose control of your body and your mind, because I had a lot of cognitive issues and I couldn't feel half my body at the time, was just like so hard for me to cope with. And it was very devastating. So I did slip into a pretty good depression at that time, and it took me a while to come out of it, mostly wrapped around like how I viewed myself now.
Yeah.
Because I just kept looking at myself saying, you're sick. Every time I look in the mirror, I was like, you're sick. You know, you have a problem. There's something wrong with you. And it took me probably like 5 years to not say that anymore to myself.
Wow.
And I did see a therapist for a very short time when I first got diagnosed, but very, very briefly. I didn't find that they were particularly helpful. And I just kind of powered through it and didn't really talk about it with a lot of people because, again, I was like that go-to. I wasn't used to the one being weaker, I guess, in my mind, weaker or needing help. So I was very uncomfortable with that aspect of needing help. And I just kind of kept going through it. I just kind of came out of it, I guess, at some point. I don't really remember. And then I started with anxiety more than depression when I became a mom. Excuse me, specifically around, because I'm a stepmom to three kids, and I basically was their mom. There wasn't really another mom figure at the time.
Yeah.
Not particularly. And so it was wrestling with that, knowing what my role was as a stepmom. Like, am I the mom? And, you know, wanting to step in and mother these children, but not sure if that was appropriate. And my partner, my husband now, was I said to him, we first moved in, I said, well, if I'm going to move in, I'm going to be their mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, are you okay with that? Because I'm tired of this like back and forth of not knowing what my role is. And he was like, that's fine. Which, okay, cool. But then it was, am I doing this right? Do I even know how to be a mom? Do I want to be a mom? Like, just over all this stuff, just having all this anxiety about that, because I basically had triplets. You know what I mean? It was like someone who just suddenly had triplets, but they were all different ages. I mean, they were kindergartners to teenagers, and juggling all of that, and being a type A personality. And I had just started my first nurse practitioner job. So there was that stress on top of it. So it was a lot. I had a lot of anxiety at that time. And I think I talked to you guys about it.
Yeah.
I talked to you. And I talked to some of the other people that I was close to at the time, talked to my parents. And we're just talking that anxiety out and that frustration.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really do anything about it, though. I don't think it was enough in my mind to do anything about.
Mm-hmm.
But over the years, when a lot of people in my family were going through a lot of mental health issues, and they were struggling big time, and their mental health issues and their struggles negatively impacted me,
Mm-hmm.
because one, being empathetic, and two, just wanting to help them and not knowing how to help them, and just feeling helpless and frustrated, and that everything that went around with that. And during that time was COVID, and we talked briefly about that before, is that really affected me very negatively. I was working in the hospital and as a primary care at the time, so that was just very, very upsetting for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I could imagine, and I mean, I don't know, I don't even know that you and I have actually really talked about this, but I could imagine that going through something like that, a pandemic, and having your own struggles at the same time, there's not really room for you to deal with what you're going through. And
No.
like, okay, what do I need to do for me right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I just felt so pulled in like 15 different directions and just so overwhelmed with everything.
Mm-hmm.
I remember sitting on the porch with my husband, and I was just like, at the height of like the beginning and the height where everybody was just dying from COVID. I'm like, I just feel so helpless. Everybody's looking to me as a healthcare worker to help this and fix this, and I can't.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do, and none of us know what to do. And it was just the most helpless and awful feeling. And my family not really being able to understand that, because they just got to work from home. They just got to be home.
Yeah.
I was just dealing with kind of the weight of the world, at least felt like it, It felt like it. And then dealing with the mental health issues that were going on with my family and everything, like you said, it just compounded, and it just kind of consumed me and overwhelmed me. And I remember kind of at the darkest point, I felt like somebody else was saying things for me. Somebody else was thinking for me. And I was just kind of in the corner, not being able to refute what they were saying. And I was like, no, I don't feel like that. I don't talk like that. This is not me. I don't like, excuse me, that other person. I don't like that person. That person's not me. And I just remember at that point, I was like, I need help.
Yeah.
For me to not like myself, this is not good. So I went on medication at that point, and then went to therapy. And for me, I use therapy because I'm very extroverted. Like, I need to speak out my problems.
Yeah.
And if I can't speak about them, or if I can't have a conversation that I want to have, it plays over and over and over in my head. The conversation will continue, and I can't sleep, and I can't pay attention, and I can't do anything, because it's just like these thoughts and conversations just keep going.
Yeah.
So by going to therapy, I was able to give it to somebody else to listen to,
Yeah.
so that it would be out of my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have to think about excuse me, think about it more. Sorry, choking. And it made a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
That other person went away.
Yeah.
You know, I was myself again. I was enjoying things again. And I was able to then start working out again and starting to want to do stuff with my partner and do stuff with other people. That went on for a little while. And then we hit a big bump again with mental health in my family. And it just hit me again. You can't, part of whenever what happens with depression is and anxiety is whenever you might be able to handle something once and you get through it. Like when I got MS, okay, handled it, went through it, cool. But what happened is I just kept getting hit with something, hit with something, hit with something. And it was like I didn't have time to recover.
Yeah.
So it just snowballed and snowballed to the point where now I think that's where the depression comes. And that's when you can't do anything. That's where the paralyzation comes.
I agree with you. And I think that's one of the challenging pieces is that life continues to happen. So whether we're talking about depression or anxiety or anything else, if you're learning to deal with, okay, I'm struggling in some way and I'm learning to deal with that. If you have an ideal period where you're able to stabilize and build up the tools, build up the supports, build up everything, great. But that's not usually how life happens for people.
Right.
Usually it's like something else is going to come along. And it doesn't even necessarily need to be something major. But if your system isn't in a place, if your body, your nervous system isn't in a place where it can stabilize, then something else being added to that, even if it's something tiny. I often think about that and I'll talk to people and say, if it's a bright sunny day outside, it could be a beautiful day outside. And if I'm feeling great, awesome. I want to take advantage. I want to get outside. I want to do things. If I'm depressed and it's a bright sunny day outside, close the shades, leave me alone. I wish the sun wasn't shining right now. That is the same environment, the same situation, but the experience is totally different based on where I'm at.
Right.
And, I also, with anxiety, can find that, like, there can be, oh, that piece of paper is on the floor. Let me just pick it up because I'm doing okay. But if I'm anxious, oh my God, that piece of paper, why didn't I pick it up earlier? How did I let it fall? All of a sudden, my mind is going to all these places
90
that it
miles an hour
doesn't need to be.
Yeah. I think that's why we use gratitude and gratitude journaling when helping people through depression and anxiety, because of that, depending on where you're at situation. Because if you're in a good place and it's a sunny day, you're like, yay, this is cool. But if you're in a bad place, then you don't recognize that. So if you put gratitude with that, then you say, okay, well, what is good about today? Like, let's reframe it. Let's flip that on its head. Okay. You wish the sun wasn't shining. Well, but when the sun is shining, then plants grow or you feel warm. I don't, whatever the situation is. So I guess I never really kind of thought about it, but that's what just kind of came to mind is, oh, that's why we use gratitude.
Yeah.
Because it flips it on its head so that it is better. Yeah.
It can be really helpful. And it's challenging too sometimes, because sometimes it's like, I can't even connect with that, right? I think what we had talked about before with like feeling things in your body, and that's very much a place where I'm coming from now. I wouldn't necessarily think, okay, well, what does this, if the sun's shining, what opportunity does that provide? Which would be helpful. That would get me to a place of gratitude. But what instead I try to lean in is, let me just feel the warmth of the sun on my skin.
Yeah, there
and
you go.
That feeling can get me to a place of, maybe I'm grateful for this, or maybe this is an opportunity, or maybe whatever reframe needs to happen there.
So it's so interesting that you said that, because this week I was really struggling for whatever reason. We talked about this before we got on. It was a low week. I don't know why. I just, had kind of a hard conversation I needed to have with my son, and, didn't want to do it. And it actually ended up being a good experience, but I just was like kind of I'm such a bad mood this week. I don't know. But yesterday it was beautiful here. And when I got off work, I went and got myself something to eat. And then it was right next to the rails to trails in our area. And I just sat outside and took in the sun and took in the warm breeze and took in like kind of the tranquility and just watching everybody walk by. And, you know, I could have went home and ate it in my house, but I wanted to feel that sun. So it's just interesting that you said that, because it's exactly what I did yesterday. And it did help. Yeah. I did feel better. By the end of the night, I was feeling better. But yeah. Okay. So what I found so interesting for me is, and I did not realize this at the time, is how much I pulled back from everybody, my family, my friends. I'm sure you could attest to this. I did not talk to anybody. I did not go anywhere. I did not text anybody, call anybody. Like my husband's family almost always would have parties and stuff like that, and they would invite us, and I'm like, I'm too tired, you know, or I didn't feel well, so I didn't go, and just really, really, really pulled back. And now that I'm literally climbing out of that, I feel like, oh my gosh, that was insane how isolated I made myself. And now I'm trying to purposefully, as we talked about, mindfully make connections, making sure I call people, making sure that I go on walks and make date nights with my husband, and, you know, all these things, go on trips, like really purposely do things. Yeah. And I feel so much better doing them. But it's crazy when you're in it, you don't realize how isolated you can make yourself.
Yeah. And there's a slippery slope that could happen there. I would think that, you know, it's not that you shouldn't ever take the time to rest, or you shouldn't ever, you know, consider these things. Like, if I'm tired, if I'm feeling fatigued, if I'm feeling burnt out, then don't do it. Right. Literally this week, I decided earlier in the week, and I think there might be something about the timing of all of this. Earlier in the week, I was just feeling really drained, really low. And I had just had a very busy weekend, you know, last weekend. And I decided on Monday, you know what? I'm not going to do anything next weekend. I'm not going out. I'm not going to go to book club. I'm not going to pick up kids. I'm not going to, you know, interact with a whole lot of people. Yeah. And as the week went on, I started to feel a little bit better. Yesterday was really difficult. We talked about this. Yesterday was just a hard day. But today I woke up and I was like, all right, I'm feeling good. I ran to the store to do some errands. I did that for me because I needed to. And now we're doing this, but I'm not doing all of these other things. And even though I'm feeling better, I'm like, I'm taking this weekend to recharge myself. And we'll get back into everything else later. It's good to do that every once in a while.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to.
Yeah, it's necessary. But you want to make sure that you're not getting caught on the extremes. It's not like, oh, I'm so tired, and so every weekend I'm staying in. Every weekend I'm, you know, withdrawing from previous plans, or avoiding people, or trying to shut down. Because when you get into that routine, that is the slippery slope into depression, into, you know, isolation. So you want to be able to say, like, okay, is this something that I need right now in order to recharge and get back into it? I want to be able to engage in a way that feels good. I want to be at these things. Yeah. So being able to kind of just decipher those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's absolutely a slippery slope. And it's not for lack of other people trying either, for me. But I also found it interesting because in our relationship, my husband is the introvert and I'm the extrovert. And I didn't realize how much I initiated doing things because when I wasn't, he didn't and we didn't. Yeah. Which he's fine with. He's perfectly fine being alone and not doing stuff. But I didn't realize, because because no one was initiating. So we just sat on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
We just watched TV, you know? And now that we're coming out of this, he's still kind of in that mode that, well, I don't want to do anything, you know, it's the weekend, or he just doesn't initiate. And so I'm like, the other day I was like, hey, we don't do anything. We don't have hobbies. Like, let's start doing something. So, and he picked right up on that, and he did. We'd have made some suggestions and have started doing things that, but it's just, you know, mental health is such a thing. It's so, it affects everything. If you're in a good headspace or like high vibration, then things are good and you're able to do things. And if it's a low vibration, it is just so hard. It's like you're slugging through the world, which, interesting. There is actual science behind that. There's the what is it? A law of attraction.
Yeah.
Everything vibrates. Everything is a vibration, and certain things naturally are at a higher vibration than others. Like nature is naturally at a high vibration all the time. It just naturally is that way. So, pro tip, if you are feeling down and need higher vibration, go stand in nature.
Yeah.
Put your feet on the grass. Like, just get out in nature in some capacity, and it'll help lift your vibration. But that feeling of literally slogging through and it's a low vibration, I wonder if that's a literal thing.
Yeah.
Because like it's a lower vibration, so it's harder to get through.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know quite the science behind that, but there is studied about vibration and how it affects you, and how the world, everything is literally vibrating. So that's interesting.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of times where I can definitely recognize the difference in myself when I'm in certain environments, and it changes based on the environment. Personally, putting my feet into some sand, nothing better. Having the warm sun on my skin, nothing better. That was also, I think, a really big challenge too, because when I got diagnosed with lupus, I'm not allowed to be in the sun. My skin revolts when I'm in the sun. So I definitely take the precautions, but I will put my feet in some sand and sit under an umbrella and just feel the warmth of being there.
Even like the warm breeze and like just the environment, the salt smell.
Yes.
You know.
Absolutely, taking all of that in. And I'm the type of person that I enjoy many different types of environments. So although the beach is like my favorite, I love going on hikes and being on top of mountains and being in the countryside and being in the woods, and I enjoy all of these different things. So finding like what resonates the most with you, and making a spot that you can go to, having a space where you can I'm going to sit here and recharge. I'm going to reconnect. I'm going to allow this experience to kind of seep into my vibration.
It's like your power spot.
Yeah.
Mine is the woods, 100%. You put me in the woods, I'm good to go. I love the trees. I love the smell of the trees. I love the crunch, like especially during the autumn time, the crunch of the leaves when you're walking, the colors, the sounds.
Yeah.
You know, you put me in there, especially on a little mountain, good to go. Like I feel so much better. Yeah, absolutely.
Those are some really important things, I think, that we take time to engage with more. Just overall, definitely for mental health. And like you were saying, mental health is such a significant part of our day to day, whether or not we're paying attention to it, whether or not we're giving energy to it. It is going to affect how we view ourselves, how we view the world, how we interact with the world, how we think the world views us, and how we show up on a day to day basis. And it's really unfortunate that it's not taken more seriously.
I think it is now, especially this kind of generation. They talk about it much more. I think going to therapy is more I can't talk today, is more recognizable, more acceptable. That's the word.
Yeah.
Is more acceptable. But I think medication is still not.
Yeah.
And I also think the kind of alternative, other than therapy,
Mm-hmm.
type modalities isn't quite recognized as something that everybody should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's still kind of what we're talking about, like meditating and
Yeah.
yoga and Reiki and chakra clearing, you know, all that sort of stuff, like energy work, breath work. I feel like that's still very on the fringes. It's getting much more
Mm-hmm.
in the norm,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely still on the fringes. And I feel like so many people could benefit
Mm-hmm.
from accepting those different things.
Yeah.
Especially energy work. I think that's so powerful. I was actually talking to a patient yesterday who was having severe anxiety, and she mentioned that she's an empath.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, have you thought about energy work? I said, because if you're saying you're an extreme empath, you're probably taking on energy that's not yours,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you could have chakras that are fully blocked because of energy that's not being released.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, oh, no, I haven't. And
Yeah.
so I talked to her about it, because she needs to be able to release that, especially if you're an empath. You need to release that energy that's not yours,
Mm-hmm.
because it can really wreak havoc on
Yeah.
you. And if you don't know that's what's happening, I think a lot of people who have depression and don't know that they're empaths,
Mm-hmm.
because that can really cause problems for you if you don't know how to get rid of that energy.
It's kind of like overloading or short circuiting the system and it shuts down.
Yeah. Yeah. I gave her a little idea to do a little mantra at night, or a little ritual saying, I release any energy that is not mine.
Mm-hmm.
I release any energy that is not serving me,
Mm-hmm.
any energy that is on lower vibration. I release that, and I allow good energy to come to me,
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That little, like a little mantra like that, because that allows you to kind of reset.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think doing something like that, finding whether it's a mantra or just one phrase or one saying or one word that you can connect with for yourself, can be really helpful. I would, well, I know that I take that one step further. I don't necessarily say something like that, but I do visualize when I'm in the shower at the end of the day, everything clearing off, out, go, it's going down the drain.
Yeah.
It is not mine anymore. I am resetting.
That's awesome. I do not do anything like that. And I know I need to.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't ever think about it. And I need to get better at that, because I definitely need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially now that we're doing a lot of this work,
Yeah.
coming into this world. I think spiritually we're much more open to all kind of vibrations and all kind of energies
Mm-hmm.
that we may not even realize that we're picking up.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, I definitely need to start doing that.
Yeah. The easiest way, at least how I've always kind of framed it for myself and when I'm talking to other people, is if you're trying to incorporate something into your day to day, start with something that you're already doing. So I'm already taking a shower every night, so that's what I'm going to add it to, as opposed to, well, sometimes I take a shower and sometimes I don't, so it doesn't make sense to try and incorporate something like that when it's not a consistent piece. If I'm already brushing my teeth every day, then when I brush my teeth, I can add something
Yeah,
to
I'm going
it.
to say that. Yeah, that makes sense. I like that. The other thing that I need to do, and I would actually recommend it people, especially empaths, is to make a little protection bubble
Mm.
in the morning. It doesn't have to be like, hardcore steel trap protection bubble, but even just saying, ask my spirits or ask the universe to protect me and watch over me, only allow good things to come to me, or what needs to come to me, and protect me from lower vibrations or lower feelings or whatever. And setting that bubble,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're going to be like in public places, or
Mm-hmm.
or you're going into a situation that might be more stressful for you. I think that would be really beneficial. I don't do that either, but I know that I should. But I would recommend that for people.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, there's a couple thoughts that are coming to my mind right now, and I think this might be a continuation of like the mindfulness that we've talked about, and definitely need to do a whole thing on its own.
Mm-hmm.
But to be aware enough to come back to that. If I'm For me, if I'm going to do a practice like that and set a bubble for myself every morning, I could see how halfway through the day or at the end of the day, I could have completely forgotten about it
Mm-hmm.
and allowed allowed myself to be in a situation in which I might have attracted negative energy, or I
Right.
might have interacted with someone and allowed that to impact me in a way that I wouldn't have otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So being mindful enough to come back and say, okay, wait a minute, am I still in this mindset? Am I still, and not that I need to, I don't think anyway, I don't think that's what you're saying, that you need to like be aware of it all day and be
No.
reinforcing it all day,
No, no,
but
no.
just a reminder of I am protected, I am safe, I am looking for, positive connections. I'm
Right.
looking for this outlook, this mindset.
Yeah.
And
There's theories on that too, that once you set it, it's there.
mhm,
And then there's also theories that like you would have to recharge it throughout the day. I personally feel like at least starting out with it,
mhm,
and like you said, midday you might have just like don't have that energy towards that thought process.
mhm.
But yeah, you don't have to be sitting there constantly like, I need my bubble, help me just be in my
Yeah.
bubble. Yeah, no, that I think that would be add extra stress to anybody.
Yeah.
But just set, like you said, setting that mindset in the first thing in the morning that you're allowing good things in. I think that that's kind of like it sets the intention for the day.
Mhm,
We always talk about setting an intention. I think that's
mhm,
definitely a good one to start with. I always struggle with what's my intention. So
mhm.
maybe just starting out there.
Yeah.
That this is my intention to allow good things and things that are supposed to happen to me.
Yeah.
I think that would be good.
Well, let's see if maybe we can incorporate some of these things into our practices a little bit more
Yeah.
consistently.
What do you think about like chakra, like having blocks in your chakra causing different things? Not just mental health, but like illnesses and,
Mhm.
struggles.
I think it's definitely possible, and there's a whole lot more that I would need to know about that. I think going to somebody who knows and understands chakras and how they work and how they get blocked, how they get unblocked, what you can do, probably from like a cultural perspective, somebody that chakras are embedded in their culture. Just because I wouldn't I don't even know what I'm thinking. I wouldn't want to like overstep and assume that this is how it works.
Right.
I don't know, but I can definitely understand the idea behind it, where we have chakras, not just as far as I know, not just aligned within our body, but through the earth
Mm-hmm.
that we can connect with, and being able to tend to them, make sure that you're doing what you need to do to keep those chakras healthy, opened,
Mm-hmm.
that you're using them appropriately, that you're listening to them if they're telling you,
Right.
something's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I personally believe that there's something to that. I don't think it's like the root of all problems, but I think that it can definitely help when you're
Mhm.
feeling a certain way or you have a certain illness or something, to have your body going at the highest it can go and feel as good as it can and
Mhm.
have the best energy into it, and having your chakras be, or just being aware of them
Mhm.
and kind of speaking to them every day, not every day, or like picking one to meditate on periodically, I think would be beneficial. I think there is something to it.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, just thought about it. I was looking behind you. You have like the little chakra
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. I mean, I know that there's something to it. I just don't know enough about it, and it would be good to like get more information and understanding of, what that means, how it works, and just another layer of keeping yourself a priority front and center in your
Mhm.
health, in your mental health, in your spiritual health, in your emotional health,
Yeah.
all of these areas.
I think we should do some research on different modalities that you can do, like what other people believe in or do, like the chakra clearing, energy work, soul retrievals, past life stuff. That would be really interesting. Like, kind of bring that together as an episode. I think that'd be cool. I just don't know enough about it to talk about it now.
Yeah,
I'd want to do the research.
okay.
Well, what do you think?
I think that was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. We definitely, as we say, unpacked a lot there, I think.
Yeah.
I think we, can bring it in for a landing and call it a day. But I just want to say, if people are having any sort of struggle with mental health or concerns, or, think anything about what we talked about today, I would definitely recommend reaching out to a local therapist in your area, or even just your primary care to talk about if you're having concerns about anything. 211-988, those are things you can contact. So I would definitely recommend, if you are feeling like you're struggling, to reach out. It's very important.
I agree. And I think even if you're not struggling, but you're questioning, or something's off, or you're unsure, there's resources available and you should seek them out and get ahead of it. And it can be hard sometimes to find a therapist that, you match with, that fits your needs, and that you connect with. So it's easier to be patient with that process when you're not at the point of crisis. If you're feeling completely overwhelmed, absolutely reach out for support. But even before that, if you're just noticing some changes, or something's off, or you want to talk, or you want to explore the opportunity of therapy in any form, reach out beforehand so you could find somebody that fits with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, I think we're going to call it today. And we ask that you rate us, like us, follow us on what you listen to us on. And yeah, it was good. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.